All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Lisa Turner. I'm the Executive Director of LPAC, and thank you, everyone, for joining LPAC's pre-election Battleground briefing. I don't even know. I'm sort of holding my breath. 1 week to go. I don't know, to be nervous, to be excited, to know if this 1 week, this extra week we get is going to be give us some extra time to pull out some wins. That's what I'm hoping for. It's been a heck of a year, and I want to give a special thank you to our donors and our elected officials for your partnership. We could not do any of this without you. And before I jump in, I'd like to recognize our board members that are with us. Charlotte Clymer, who is going to be our moderator, Alex Ritchie, Laura Ricketts, and Sherry Weiner. Thank you very much to our board members who are with us. As you all know, and I know you know from a lot of our emails and some of the other briefings we've had this year, 2022 has been LPAC's biggest election cycle ever. We've endorsed over 124 candidates this year and made over $300,000 in direct political contributions, the most candidates and the most contributions in our 10-year history. We know more than anyone does, I think, that representation matters, especially at the state legislative level, which is why our mission continues to be electing LGBTQ women at the local, state, and federal levels of government. We're excited today to give you this opportunity to hear from 6 of our candidates in Battleground states. This is going to be beyond the Beltway, firsthand knowledge of how it's going across the country in these very important states. As you all know, LPAC believes in the power of state legislative leaders. This year, 6,279 of the 7,383 seats are up for election in 46 states. These states also have 36 gubernatorial elections, along with 130 ballot initiatives. It's really where the rubber meets the road for our democracy, for women's rights, for equal rights, for voting rights. And each of the women leaders that you will hear from today will talk about not only their specific race, but also give a take on how things are going in their own states. The second half of this will be a Q&A moderated by our board member, as I mentioned before, Charlotte Clymer. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, and we will do our best to get to them after each of our candidates have had a few minutes to introduce themselves, but also say a few words about how not only their race is going, but the state of the state in their particular state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our terrific political director, Matt Foraker, to kick things off. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Lisa, and hello, everyone. So as Lisa said, to get started, we will have each of the candidates speak briefly about their own races and the state of the electoral landscape in their state as a whole. So we're going to get started with Senator Nikki Antonio from Ohio. Senator?
Well, thanks everybody who's on the Zoom today, and thanks so much to LPAC. I've been supported by LPAC for a few rounds now and really appreciate the sisterhood and the support. Means a lot, and it helps a lot because none of us can get elected on our own, obviously. So my race right now is I'm running for re-election in the Senate. In Ohio, we have term limits, and so I've served 8 years in the House, 4 2-year terms, which is what we're allowed. And then I came over to the Senate and am serving in my first term right now, running for my second term. My race is, I have a challenger, I have an opponent, but he's not raised any money, not done a whole lot of work. He has a handful of yard signs out there, and he's pretty much giving the national message when he shows up at events and things like that. So one of the things I'm trying to do with my race, which if you've been following what's going on in Ohio, one of the things that happened is we're running in unconstitutionally gerrymandered districts. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is just continue to raise the enthusiasm of the people that are new to me in the district, and I'm new to them as their senator, hopefully not new to them in general, is to get them enthusiastic and push up the ticket, which is what we often do with our state ledge races anyway. We're the contact point for people on the ground a lot of times, but they may not have met the person running for governor, or in our state, Tim Ryan, who's running for the Senate, but we can talk about how important their races are. And we actually have critical races in our Supreme Court. We have 3 amazing women running for Supreme Court that if we can get these Democrats elected, and for the first time ever, they're going to have a party affiliation after their name, we can actually turn the tide on what's been happening with gerrymandering and with redistricting. Without that, as well as bodily autonomy is on the ballot, reproductive rights are on the ballot, access to abortion, and many other things in the state of Ohio. There's a lot riding on this election. So we're doing everything we can to reach the voters and just really get them enthused and get them out there to vote. So that's what's happening in Ohio right now.
Thank you very much, Senator. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about what is happening at the top of the ticket and how the energy is feeling and all of that. Next, I think we will move on to Representative Deb Butler in North Carolina. Representative?
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, LPAC. It's certainly a pleasure to be here with you. It's going to bring me some comfort and solace because it's been right vicious here on the coast of North Carolina. I am the chief whip in the North Carolina House, which means I am sort of the third in the leadership hierarchy here in our North Carolina House on the Democratic side. And many of you may know me from a viral moment that happened a few years ago when I refused to yield the floor to the speaker who was pulling a veto override, a sneak veto override vote of our governors who had vetoed the budget. So in any case, it's just gotten, as I said, very vicious down here. We have redrawn our maps, and my race down here is more competitive than ever before. And if there's a voice they want silenced, of course, it's mine. So there's an inordinate amount of money being spent. And the attacks have just been brutal because apparently I am the leader of a very astute criminal gang. I want to legalize meth and heroin. Let's see, what else do I want to do? Oh, it's just, I mean, it's unconscionable. I have been called an emotional woman. I can't control myself. I shout, I scream, I break the rules. And and this sign is sexist. So, you know, honestly, the state of politics, and I recognize this is nationwide. And I often ask myself, you know, is it possible to get this genie back in the bottle? The attacks against me, I can't tell whether they're homophobic or misogynistic. It's a very fine line, just a nice smattering of both. So we finally have had to cross the threshold I didn't want to cross and put forward negative ads ourselves in defense mostly, but also attacking him for things he has legitimately done. You catch me in a moment where I'm so concerned about the state of the republic. You know, I saw someone discussing it just recently to say, you know, this misinformation is so rampant that by the time the truth catches up to it, if it ever does, it's just damaging as it can be. And I think about how, you know, what that means for us moving forward and how we fix it. I want some ultra bright person like Pete Buttigieg to tell me how to do that. But in any case, I will say from a political point of view, I have outraised my opponent. We have stayed on the high road as long as we could. We have a very robust digital and TV campaign going. We put these guerrilla signs out. We put 1,000 of them overnight one night just to try to get women's attention for them to recognize how important reproductive health is this time. In North Carolina, I think like many other places, we're seeing voter registrations do an odd thing. We are seeing Democratic registrations down. We are seeing Republican registrations up slightly, and unaffiliated registrations off the chart. That seems to be a national trend. Nothing is different here. In North Carolina, in the early vote, Democrats are outpacing Republicans, but not by an enormous margin, and unaffiliated voters are voting in enormous margins. We also see an increase in the level of the female vote, which I think is a good thing, certainly. What all that means, how that shakes out, whether these Republicans who have finally learned how to early vote, whether they're just relocating their vote and moving it forward, or if there are just that many more of them, remains to be seen. But what I do know is that we've got to get this message out. I might have frozen a minute there, did I? Sorry about that. In any case, I hope you can still hear me. I'll stop there and we can answer some questions as necessary.
Great, thank you, Representative. So next up, we have Latasha Mays, who is running for the Pennsylvania State House. Latasha?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latasha D. Mays, she, her pronouns. Thank you so much to the LPAC community and network for your support of my campaign here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am running for state representative in the 24th Legislative District, one of the most progressive districts in the region, and certainly in Western Pennsylvania. When I win on November 8th, I will be the first woman ever to hold the seat in the 24th District, and I'll be the first out lesbian in the Pennsylvania General Assembly. So I'm extremely proud of this time, this moment, this opportunity, my campaign, and everybody who's worked so hard to get me to this point, including LPAC. I am a reproductive justice organizer. I founded and ran New Voices for Reproductive Justice for 18 years. And it really brought me to a place of leading so many strategies to fight for the human right of us all to control our bodies, our sexuality, our gender, our work, our reproduction, and the ability to form our families. And so that work has meant working with my future colleagues in Harrisburg and on state level policy, previously working with colleagues in the state legislature in Ohio, with so many amazing Black women legislators, especially in Cleveland, and doing the work on the ground of organizing for issues ranging from access to healthcare, ending the shackling of pregnant incarcerated inmates, to access to contraception, LGBTQ rights, and so much more, as well as engaging, mobilizing, and turning out Black women voters in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And that's all been a part of my journey. I ran for elected office before in 2015 for city council and was unsuccessful, but it set me up to be able to run again for a higher office with that background, with that experience, with that. Sometimes I think as organizers and people who are fighting for justice, we don't understand that there's a whole world and landscape on the electoral side of things. And I think that's where I bring a unique perspective, working at that intersection of policy advocate and community organizer, and now soon to be a legislator. So I'm following in the footsteps of so many incredible Black women and women who've come before me in Pennsylvania and, just across the nation. And we're at a critical moment in Pennsylvania. While I will win my race next week, thanks to, the hard work of so many, I want to see the first Black woman go to Congress from Pennsylvania, in Summer Lee, who's my friend and sorority sister. I want to see John Fetterman beat someone who doesn't even live in Pennsylvania. I want to see Josh Shapiro win as our governor, because the alternative in Doug Mastriano, it's just not possible for us to continue living and growing and working in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I believe that all the races will be close, and we cannot take anything for granted. And so that's why I'm out here campaigning after a primary victory to increase voter turnout, because that's what I've been doing. That's been my work for 20 years. And so to make sure that when I get to Harrisburg, that I have a governor who can help us win for key issues around reproductive justice, including abortion access. And we're facing a constitutional ban here in Pennsylvania, I'm sure, the first week I take office. So that's the lay of the land here in Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia, and I lived in Pittsburgh in my adult life, so I have a broader statewide view of the politics that's going on. And the time is now for unlikely or unexpected leaders like myself, Black women, women of all backgrounds, people of all genders, to run. This is the time to do it. This is the time. No one can solve the most pressing issues of this political moment, but those who experience, the fallout and the aftermath of poor legislation and decision-making by people who mean us harm, by people who want to uphold a racist, white supremacist patriarchy. And so I ran a Disrupt Politics as usual. We did it in May. We're going to do it again on November 7th. And this last week, we are really engaging different segments of the electorate in my district, and what we're calling, and what others are calling, Rovember. Like, we didn't forget what the Supreme Court did in June. And I believe that will turn people out to the polls among many issues. But that's the area where I, have the most confidence and background and leadership, and I can bring that to bear, not only for increasing turnout on Election Day, but when I'm sworn in on January 3rd. So I'll end there. Thank you so much for having me. And I may have to hop off, but it's been great to listen to all the previous speakers, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So next up, we have Janelle Perez in Florida, who's running for state senate there and joining us literally from the campaign trail. She has been knocking doors. So, Janelle?
Yes. Hi, how are you all? I first of all, thank you, Lisa, Matt, and all of LPAC for all of the support. You guys were early validators to my campaign, and I can't tell you how much LPAC has legitimized me, has helped me, and your support has been incredible in my campaign. For those of you that don't know me, I am running for Senate District 38. It's in Miami-Dade County. I am a mom, I am a cancer survivor, and I'm a business owner. And I can't think of a better way to stick it to Ron DeSantis and the Republican Party in Florida than by electing the first LGBTQ parent to the Florida legislature after the atrocious year that LGBTQ families had here in Florida. This race is not only important to Florida Democrats and freedom and democracy, but this has national consequences. As you all know, Miami-Dade County is usually delivered for Democrats, national Democrats, presidential Democratic, candidates. If we don't win this seat, not only will we have a Republican supermajority in the Florida legislature, but there will not be one Hispanic Democrat elected into Florida politics from Miami-Dade County. That's huge. I sat down and I thought about it. We don't even have them in Miami-Dade County, any Florida Democrats that are Hispanic. So this would be really, really, really bad. This race is a +7. This seat is supposed to be a +7 Democrat-leaning district. But we are seeing that Democrats in Florida right now, we are finding a huge challenge with getting them to turn out and vote. The seat that I'm running for was lost by 34 votes in 2020. And it was because there was a ghost candidate. They committed fraud. There are people actually about to be in prison for what happened in 2020. So this is a seat that they want. This is a seat that they want to keep, that they want to take away from us here. And I'm doing everything that I possibly can I'm going out every day within my district. It's a huge district. The only Democratic presence at a lot of these polling sites is my campaign. So it's almost like I am also carrying the top of the ticket within my district as well, instead of it being the other way around. My campaign has been the most organized, the most coordinated. We have a presence at every early voting site. But I will tell you that we went into early voting with a 10-point lead, like a 10-point Democratic lead in vote by mail. That lead has now come down to a 3-point lead. This is a Democrat leaning district. These numbers are scary. There is a possibility that this could be lost if we don't turn out the vote. So my campaign has shifted most of its resources and energy to getting out the vote. I'm literally out right now, knocking on doors, canvassing, doing what I need to do to literally drag people out. And I'm trying to up my field team. So as you all are sitting down and really thinking about where you want to contribute these next couple of days, I know that there's a lot of incredible candidates. I would love it if you consider my campaign as one of those as well, because we are doing the work. We are doing everything that we can, and there really is national implications. Ron DeSantis is going to run for president in 2024. I feel like at this point, there isn't much we can do to change the outcome of the gubernatorial election. It's more likely that he is going to win. Now, is he going to win with a Republican supermajority as well? And that'll be very, very dangerous. That'll make him a much more powerful person, that it will then go around the national environment and the entire nation touting what he accomplished in the state of Florida. And he's going to be bringing it right to your doorstep. So please, I thank you for everything that you've done. If you can do a little more, I appreciate you. I wouldn't be a good candidate if I didn't make the ask. I'd love to be able to answer questions. I don't think we're doing questions right now, but I'll stick around to be able to answer some afterwards. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Janelle. So next we have Representative Lori Pahutsky, who represents the great state of Michigan. Lori?
Thanks, Matt. Thank you, LPAC. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. LPAC has been just hugely, hugely helpful. Michigan is always a battleground state, and this midterm election is no different. So thank you for all of your support. I currently serve in the Michigan legislature in the most marginal district in the state house. So I flipped it in 2018, held on to it in 2020. But both of those elections were won by 0.4%. So it was a nail biter both of those times. We just recently underwent redistricting under an independent citizens redistricting commission. So this is the first chance that we've had in a really, really long time to run under fair maps. And in contrast to I believe it was Rep. Butler was talking about how redistricting impacted her negatively. It treated me very kindly. So I had a Republican gerrymandered district that we just managed to flip over time. Now this district is, the district that I'm currently running in is much safer, which means that I can, while introducing myself to hopefully new constituents after next week's election, I can also pitch in and help in really, really marginal seats in races that look more like the ones that I've run previously. Because we have these new fair maps, it's the first chance we've had to flip the Senate in about 40 years here in Michigan, and the House in about 20-ish, I think. So we are poised to gain a Democratic majority in both the House and the Senate, hopefully reelect our Democratic governor and actually get some work done. We have a really interesting ballot ahead of us, though. We have 3 proposals. One of them deals with term limits and financial disclosure. The other one deals with voting rights. So back in 2018, we passed a constitutional amendment that allowed for no reason absentee voting. That was obviously hugely helpful during the pandemic. We had our most secure election ever here in Michigan during the pandemic, but we also saw really, really increased turnout numbers because people could vote by absentee ballot, for any reason. In the time since then, we've seen the majority attack that right within the framework of the constitutional amendment. So make it more difficult for people to obtain an absentee ballot. We already have one of the most stringent voter ID laws here in Michigan. They have been attempting to make that even more stringent and disenfranchise people and make it more difficult for them to access the voting box. So Proposition 2 on our ballot would enshrine those rights further into the Constitution and kind of undercut these attacks that we're seeing from the Republican majority. We also have Proposal 3 on the ballot, which is reproductive freedom for all, and it would basically codify the rights that we had under Roe v. Wade in the Michigan Constitution. So allow for the constitutional right to access abortion care, contraception, pre and postnatal care. So things that are really, really important and we know drive out voters. So this is one of the most important elections that we have seen in Michigan. I say that every year, but the stakes just keep getting higher, and we see what is at stake right now. And I think that we are poised to get all of this done, to, you know, strengthen voter protections and voter rights, to codify reproductive justice, to flip the House and the Senate, but we have to make sure that we are getting out the vote. So I want to thank LPAC for making it easier for me to do that, both in my new district and also to help out people who have just a really, really tough road ahead of them, because the Republicans are also aware that we are poised to do all of this, and they are fighting like hell to try and stop us from doing it.
Thank you so much, Representative, for sharing all of that. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about that too. Next up, we have Representative Park Cannon, who is coming to us from her day job and just logged in, but Representative, happy to turn it over to you for a few minutes, and then we'll get started with the Q&A.
Thank you so much, everyone. Listen, LPAC has been one of my favorite groups to be a part of. When you become a progressive elected official, sometimes the idea of a PAC can be challenged in this idea that it's not insert word enough. But LPAC has really been a great supporter of my campaign since 2016, and I want to thank you. But I really want to give an update on what the state of affairs are in Georgia and why this is necessary. Today, Tuesday, November 1st, the largest hospital in my district closed. That's going to have a disparate impact on the people who look like me, love like me, and worship like me. We have seen many communities across Georgia have closing hospitals, and for LGBTQ families, sometimes the only places where they can receive care that is actually trauma-informed and that actually views their family as a unit are in the hospitals. When those doors are closed and doctors are doing life-saving procedures or are actually speaking up about injustices that they're seeing created by elected officials and politicians. Because it is absolutely true. Here in Georgia, we have a lot of elected officials who do not believe that LGBTQ families deserve dignity. They don't believe in reproductive justice, and they certainly showed that in the previous legislative session, where they not only passed a bill that makes it really, really difficult for children who are transitioning to enjoy sports, but also made it so that access to abortion is capped at 6 weeks. Now, elected officials like myself, I call myself an activist elected official. We're really important to the political ecosystem because we're able to bring intersectional conversations to the table. So when they were banning abortion at 6 weeks, we made it really clear that it was hypocritical for them to only give postpartum Medicaid access for 6 weeks. So you only have 6 weeks to determine if you're going to carry your pregnancy, and you only have 6 weeks after to be cared for. We got them to push it to 6 months, and then the federal government came in and gave us up to a year. And now we've gotten the state to push for a full year. But it's because of awesome other legislators here. Senator Antonio, I'm going to call you out. I remember meeting you in the beginning of my political campaign. You have always been a great mentor. Mayor Jeffrey, thank you for your continued support of my campaign. It's always great to see that money come in, but also to feel like there are familiar faces. And I cannot get off here without saying the one and only Latasha D. Mays. I am so glad that you are running. Thank you for being a part of the Sister Song family. Thank you for caring about reproductive justice. Let's go out and turn out the vote. Right after I leave here, I am taking this long sleeve shirt off and going and hitting the doors. Thank you for having me from Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you so much, Representative. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to all of our elected officials and candidates who have shared all of this information with us. I think we really have a star-studded panel. So I'm so grateful that you were able to join. I'm going to turn it over to our board member, Charlotte Clymer, who is a writer and activist and is going to be leading the Q&A section of this event. I'm also going to drop in an Act Blue link to the chat, which will allow any of you to donate to any of these candidates should you so choose. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I don't have a very easy task of choosing among these 6 brilliant women who are running for office, who we all need to support. I do want to turn it over to Latasha, who I very much hope to be calling Representative Hayes here very shortly. We've seen the conversation on abortion really explode this year, and not just with the Dobbs ruling, but really with the overwhelming, record-breaking voter registration, especially among young women and queer folks. What is the situation on the ground there with this feeling about Dobbs? And is it something that's really motivating people to turn out?
I can say in my race, and before I start, Park, it's so good to see you. And we've been on this journey together for a long time. And so rooted in a reproductive justice movement and framework, that is our background. That's where Park and I come from. And so just to set it up, like Black women have been saying at least since 2014 that Roe v. Wade will come to an end. And so in that time, in the interim time, we were doing the work. We were building a bigger, broader, more expansive movement for reproductive justice that was speaking to the issues of those that I know we and New Voices for Reproductive Justice were serving on the ground in Pittsburgh, on the ground in Philadelphia, on the ground in Cleveland. And so this was not something that we did not see coming. I think that, we still felt the depths of despair when those Supreme Court documents were leaked. For me, I know people knew my background as someone who had fought for abortion access and would continue to do so as a state representative. So I don't know if that might have compelled people who are already supporting me to come out and vote. But I do think it put it more solidly in people's faces who may not come out in a primary. And so the leaking of those documents, I think it shook people to the core for them to say, okay, now what? What can I do? If I can only vote, who do I vote for? And they're certainly flocking to register and to vote for pro-abortion access candidates. And so I think not only that, it was the actual organizing for justice too, that we are not accepting an unjust Supreme Court ruling to tell us that we don't control our bodies. This isn't 1973. We have so much more at our disposal. We have so much passion and bold vision, unapologetic commitment to justice that I think it's a different time. And so instead of being like, oh, well, we won't have access to abortion, we're trying to figure out how to get people from Ohio to come to Pittsburgh, which will be the 5th largest city where we'll see people flocking for abortion care. And having worked in Pennsylvania and Ohio, people from Ohio were already coming to Pennsylvania. After so many pieces of legislation and policy that passed in state legislatures, we saw the number of abortion clinics decline by half in Pennsylvania. So in an already distressed abortion care ecosystem, the demand has gone up. But we saw people across generations coming out to organize. The ruling itself, I think, definitely carries through to the general election. I think that people are voting on people, candidates' position on abortion access. We saw what happened in Kansas, but we saw what happened in Georgia. So it's not a straightforward path, but it's a state by state situation. And so for me, having the opportunity to serve as a state legislature at this time, there's no place I'd rather would want to be than on the front lines in our state capital. Someone like me, someone who identifies as an out lesbian, someone who has been doing this work for a long time, to go there and continue to fight that fight. And so I think we're going to see monumental voter turnout this year.
Thank you so much, Latasha. And folks, if you want to just enter your questions in the chat box, I'm happy to read those off. And in fact, if you want to ask the candidates yourself face to face, I'm totally fine with that too. Just let us know. I know everyone's campaigning right now, everyone's busy. I do want to go to Representative Cannon and personally just thank you for your stalwart support of trans non-binary youth in Georgia. You have never wavered. You've been a national voice for trans equality, especially for trans non-binary youth. I cannot thank you enough for that. What can we be doing right now to support organizers on the ground in Georgia? Oh. Representative Cannon, can you hear me?
I think are you able to hear me?
Oh, yes. I apologize. Did you catch that?
Give it to me one more time.
Yes, ma'am, no problem. First, I wanted to thank you for your stalwart support of trans non-binary youth in Georgia. We really appreciate it. You've never wavered, and I cannot tell you how much comfort that has given the trans community. You're a leader, and we appreciate that so much. What can we be doing right now with the world's eyes on Georgia to help political organizers doing the grunt work, really saving democracy quite literally, not just for Georgia, but for everybody else too? What can we be doing to support folks?
Yeah, let's remind, we've got a big Senate race here. We've got a big governor's race here. We've got our state ledge on here. But what we're really wanting people to remember is that the other side, the opposite options, are not an option. And we need for people to make the connections around the country. For example, in our agricultural commissioner race, the Black woman who is running is proud to say she is a 5th-generation farmer. She can trace back her roots. Well, her opponent has started saying he's a 7th-generation farmer. Now, I'm not quite sure what that rings out to you, but here in Georgia, we know that dog whistle. We know what that means. And so this is long-term hate. I love reminding people that even when my ancestors were brought across the waters from Africa, there were people of trans experience on those ships. There were people who were in community and who were talking about the need for them to have separate space. And so we do make sure that our canvassers, as they go out, that we have supportive people with them and are watching their backs. The death threats have continued and increased on LGBTQ candidates. I'm sure we're all seeing it. And so right now, it's really about creating a message of safety and support when the other side is continuing to be more violent and more divisive.
Yes, ma'am. I could not agree more. And folks, we're going to be plugging these donation links for the candidates here in the chat box. Make sure you donate to Latasha, who I hope to be calling Representative Mays here very soon. Make sure you donate to Representative Cannon. They're getting the job done. I don't know if y'all saw this a couple of years ago, but Representative Cannon was arrested for protest at the state capitol, like really fighting on the front lines for us. When she says she's an activist elected official, she is an activist elected official. She gets it done. Janelle, I'm not sure where you are. Oh, there you are. I know you're out campaigning. You got to get back to door knocking. You would be the only LGBTQ woman in the Florida State Senate.
Yeah. So in the Senate, it would be myself, and then Michelle Rayner is in the House. But I would be the first parent, the first openly gay parent in the Florida legislature, in both chambers.
And what does that mean to you right now, ma'am?
What does that mean right now? I mean, for anyone on here that is a parent, I'm sure that you can only imagine how I feel that that this past legislative session they personally came after my family. They personally came out after families like mine, my children. And my race has gotten so disgusting and dirty and nasty that I actually have text messages on my phone from people saying, I'm going to murder you and your family. My race has gotten really bad. It's gotten very homophobic. They're using pictures of my wife and I. You know, I think I am proud that when I win, I will be the first openly gay parent, because when I was growing up, all I was constantly told was, if you're gay, you're never going to be successful, you're never going to be happy, and you're never going to have a family. Well, here I am, a homeowner, a business owner. I've got my entire family beside me, next to me. I've got 2 beautiful, healthy girls. I've created over 200 jobs in this community. And guess what? Now I'm also your state senator. So I think when people see me in the state of Florida, when we are going through everything that we're going through, the political climate that we're in here, where it's just specifically like so much hate against the LGBTQ community, so much hatred against women. I know you all were talking about abortion rights. You know, Florida, our governor is pledging a complete and total abortion ban next legislative session. So all of these things, they're happening, and they're happening here. And this is the petri dish for what the national conversation is going to be in 2024. So if there's ever a time to stop, if there's ever a time to step up, and a time to tell people, don't forget about Florida, like, don't write us off, because there's a lot of incredible candidates on the ballot right now, across the state, that if we had the support that we needed, could absolutely win, because the numbers are there, the margins are close enough. We just need people not to write us off and forget about us.
And Janelle, I hope to be calling you Senator Perez very, very soon here. You have the most competitive race out of almost any of our candidates. What would it mean to get a donation in these closing days for your campaign?
So right now, we're done with the TV. We're not buying any more TV. Miami-Dade County is the 3rd largest market in the country when it comes to political TV buys. So we're not doing that. What we would be doing, or what we would be using that money for right now, is getting out the vote efforts. I'm trying to say this in the right. We have been a little bit abandoned by the Florida Democratic Party, all of the down ballot candidates. So we have to do things for ourselves. So even though this district has 10,000 more Democrats and 10,000 more NPAs that lean Democrat than there are in a total of Republicans, we have to get out the vote much more aggressively. I'm running against someone with a blank check. She has $7 million to herself to do whatever she wants, and she has not raised any of that money. That's all been the party. My seat is keeping Republicans from a supermajority. This would make them more powerful than the governor. This would make, like, this seat is the one to watch in the state of Florida, more than the governor's race, more than, honestly, at this point, more than Val Deming's race, to be honest. This is the seat to watch, because it is the most contested, it is the closest, and it is the one keeping things from getting bad to worse. So right now, a contribution to my campaign is going to go to getting out the vote effort. It's going to go to helping me hire some more field people to go out and literally get people out. I've been trying to rent some buses to take seniors, and to go to community centers, and to also bus them to the polling sites. And we're going to try to do more souls to the polls efforts. So this would mean going into some of the neighborhoods, offering some barbecue. But if you sign up for a barbecue, then you got to go vote. But those are the kinds of efforts that we're trying to do. And that's what those resources would go to paying for, because I'm personally tapped out myself. And you know, the support's just not coming.
Well, it's on the way. I mean, we got so many volunteers here who are just so supportive of what you're doing. And I got to say, just to watch LGBTQ parents get elected means so much to me. I'm really excited. We do have one question really quickly from Valerie Plupas. She asks, I wasn't able to pick up your call this morning, but can I help you with phone banking this week or weekend?
Absolutely, Valerie. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And when I saw you on the call, I was like, I did call time to her this morning. Yes, Valerie, absolutely. I can, if it's okay with you, I could text you the link for our vote by mail chase. So we're trying to chase Democrats who have received their vote by mail ballot and just haven't submitted it yet. So I can definitely send that to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
And anyone else, I'll put my phone number in the chat. If anyone else wants to help phone bank, or actually it's just phone banking because text, they didn't give us text banking. But just if anyone else wants to help phone bank, I'll put my number in the chat. Give me a call or shoot me a text and I'm happy to send you the link.
You know, I'm going to help phone bank this weekend for you.
Yes.
I have no doubt you're going to win this race and you have the folks behind you. So we're going to make it happen.
We're all excited. I've got everybody in the car. We're out knocking. So we will, yes, we'll take you all up on that. I'm going to put my phone number in the link. Send me a text and I'll send you all the link to phone bank.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, guys.
A great day. Representative Butler, you I want to kind of put a lighthearted note on this. You put out a brilliant campaign sign along with two of your colleagues that said, "Trust women." Could you hold that up for us? And what happened when you put out this sign?
Well, you know, a lot of them were summarily destroyed, which is to be expected. But it's interesting, in the time that I've been on this Zoom, I've gotten a text from a reporter from the Charlotte Observer here in North Carolina, wanting to talk about the sexist nature of what has happened in my campaign. You know, the language that has evolved around me in this context is emotional, out of control, a screamer, shrill. I mean, horrible misogynistic language that, you know, would normally have been disqualifying. You know, you a few short years ago, an opponent would never have used that language because, of course, it's insulting to all women, and every woman knows what it means to be called shrill or loud or emotional. So I gather she's doing a story about the sexist nature of the attacks on me. And I thought I would share one other little quick story, if I might, Charlotte, because
please.
I married my wife Annie in 2015, and she died suddenly from a brain aneurysm in December of 2018. And you know, suffice to say, it was one of the most horrible day of my life. But I think I fast forward 2 to 3 months, she saw me win that election in 2018. And as I was sworn in January of 2019, my colleagues in the House adjourned the day of swearing in now in her honor and memory. And I thought, wow, we're getting somewhere here. Maybe we are really seeing a sea change. And then, don't you know, within 3 months, those very same people started putting forward again all of this horrible regressive legislation and ignoring anything remotely resembling statewide non-discrimination legislation that I had filed countless times. So, you know, sometimes it feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I'm just, you know, I remain hopeful because I hear the voices of some of my associates here. And, you know, they're young and they're energetic. I've been in the ditch a little bit longer maybe than they have. And today has been a particularly painful day because this language and these ads are just, they're assaults. They feel like assaults and they're just not true. So, you know, like everyone else, I need resources to keep our responsive ads up and running. The television market here in Wilmington is quite approachable and quite affordable. A little bit of money does go a long way. So I am again, would just like to encourage all the LPAC members to help the candidates that they can. And, nobody's giving up the fight. We're just a little weary at this point.
Representative Butler, if I can ask you real quick, a lot of us here are queer women and from the South. I'm from Texas, Representative Cannon's from Georgia, you're in North Carolina. What do you say to folks who are skeptical of queer organizing in the South? What would you say to them?
Well, this is so interesting, Charlotte. I would say HB2. If you guys remember the infamous bathroom bill that we passed here in North Carolina, and it was so bad that when we did that, when the Republicans did that, athletics boycotted North Carolina, NASCAR boycotted North Carolina, the film industry left North Carolina. That regressive action, which was nothing more than an effort to gin up their base, right? It was an attack on our trans community. We voted those suckers out. In 2018, we gained on them in the midterms pretty solidly after that. So, hey, look, gay folks have a lot of disposable income and they know how to organize and they really get the job done.
That's right. It's a bad idea to pick on queer leaders in the South. We fight back.
Right.
We are running out of time, so I want to make sure I get to everybody. Representative Putsky, it's so good to have you here. Tell us about things on the ground there. What's going on? And you said the last two election cycles were decided by 0.4% of a difference.
Yeah.
How tight is it right now?
So, I mean, my election, they're not even paying any attention. So that 0.4% was, my previous two elections. Like I said, redistricting treated me very, very kindly. However, all of the battleground races, so when we look at our gubernatorial race, our governor has consistently been ahead in the polls significantly. But no one is letting up. My biggest concern is, when I ran in 2018, it was our midterm election post Donald Trump's election. And I think that there was this element of thinking that's what's going to save us. That's what's going to deliver us majority. And don't get me wrong, we flipped a ton of seats, but we didn't quite get there. In 2020, since Donald Trump was on the ballot and we knew that people wanted to vote him out, I think there was kind of this thought of, well, that's what's going to save us, and that will deliver us majority. And we broke even. So my biggest concern is kind of looking at the lay of the land and thinking, well, we have fair districts and we have these really popular ballot initiatives on the ballot, and that's going to deliver us majority, and nothing else is going to save us. We are going to save us. So, the importance of this last week not getting run down and still making sure that we are on doors and we are making connections and we are getting out the vote to historically disenfranchised voters. That is the most important thing we can be doing right now. So if you look at polling, we look like we're in good shape. Recently, there's a national pollster that looked at the money coming into Michigan and the money being spent and just general Democratic enthusiasm. And they think that the House and the Senate are both now lean Dem. The House was previously a toss-up. The Senate, they kind of thought might flip. They've both been decided to be lean Dem right now. That's great. I kind of internally brace myself because I don't ever want us to think that's good. We can just kind of, ease up. We can't. We have to keep going until the very, very last minute. So things are looking hopeful, but we need to hope for the best, but work as though it's still going to be the worst.
And y'all have plenty of places right now to put a generous donation to your campaign, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the majority of the money that I'm raising, I didn't have to do TV ads. We did mailers. We've got get out the vote materials. I am turning right back around to the caucus so that they can distribute it to the most competitive seats that we have where they need to spend more money in these last few days. So anything that comes my way is actually going to either flip these really competitive seats or hold on to our battleground seats. So yes, absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Representative Putsky. We only have a couple minutes left. Can we go a few minutes over, Lisa and Matt? Is that okay? Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, San Antonio. I see you. Don't worry. No worries. Before I get to you really quickly, I do want to point this out because this is very important. Representative Butler, you have Sherry Beasley running for the Senate in North Carolina. How important is this race? First Black woman running for the Senate from North Carolina, or to be the first Black woman in the Senate from North Carolina?
I am so excited to be a friend of Sherry Beasley. She has the judicial temperament that we want in that position. She is, of course, she was the first African-American Chief Justice female to the North Carolina Supreme Court, and then lost re-election by 400 votes statewide in the last election cycle. We want to kill ourselves every time we think about that. She's getting better on the stump minute by minute. She's just an extraordinary person. The race is still so close. And, you know, Ted Budd is just a horrible, super right wing, guilty of all of the things my opponent is guilty of: misogynistic language, homophobic language. Sherry Beasley is the real deal, and we would be well served here in North Carolina to have her as our senator.
I've been so excited about her for so long. I know it's a little off topic, but I felt it's important because that could be one of the critical Senate seats that gets us past that filibuster margin, or at least killing the filibuster. So just want to underscore that for everyone here. Sherry Beasley, North Carolina, if you can, make a donation to her at some point. Senator Antonio, I'm so sorry. You've been so patient. We have so many great women here, and it's tough to circulate for everybody. The saying used to be, and it's probably more true ever than now, that as Ohio goes, so goes the nation, right? Well, what is it like there right now with this just ironclad fight?
Sure. So, you know, this has been great because I'm the first person from the LGBT community ever elected to the legislature. I'm also a mom, as well as the first woman in my Senate seat. And I'm the assistant minority leader right now, but I'm in line to become the next minority leader for the Senate once this election is over. So it's right up against and inconsistent with where Ohio is right now, which is very, very much to the right and very, very conservative. However, Ohio is a swing state, and I want people to remember that. I refuse to accept that we're a red state. We've just swung to the right right now, but that's because of gerrymandered districts, term limits, and a lot of other things that have happened to make a supermajority. Where we're at right now is, no matter how this election turns out, we hope we get the Supreme Court. We have the opportunity to send the second Democrat in the Senate to the Senate with Tim Ryan. If we can win that seat, that is critically important, and we're doing everything we can to help that. The other thing we're going to have to do, I love hearing that some states have fair districts. We don't right now. Our districts have, and the supermajority, the GOP majority has ignored the people who said they want fair districts. We're going to have to go back to a ballot initiative probably next year and put redistricting back on the ballot. It's the only way we're going to be able to swing to some kind of a balance. Ohio goes back and forth depending on what's going on. But I have to say, we have Jim Obergefell on the ballot in the House, and I'm sure everyone knows who he is. He is the named defendant that gave us the Supreme Court decision for marriage equality. I'm very excited about that because I want to make sure, as all of us do, we need to have more LGBT folks at the table, on the ballot. I'm consistently trying to recruit some other women to run. But one of the things I can tell anybody who's thinking about making a contribution to any of our campaigns and to any of the work that we're doing, and I love the shout out from Park and hearing from all these folks, is when you're part of the LGBT community, and especially the women on this call who are also serving in these seats, we not only are on the front line, we're holding the line. I've been able to hold negative legislation. Sometimes I keep introducing a fairness bill, but we've held back on some of the negative as well. And I think it's really important that people understand that we are there on the front line, and with your help, we can continue to support what we're trying to do and bring others along as well. So I'm very appreciative. And in spite of how everything has swung so far to the right, it's up to all of us to push it back the other way.
And Senator, I do want to point out, this is not just about this election cycle. You are the assistant minority leader, which means that with some very strong showings in 1 or 2 terms, you could very well
Yes.
be the Senate Majority Leader. Right?
That would be lovely.
Yeah, but it could happen.
Yes.
And that's what we're fighting for. And so, folks, I can't insist enough. Please donate to these candidates. I'm going to be donating. Our board members are going to have their backs. We want to see these folks, moving up and getting things done, not just for the queer community generally, or for LGBTQ people, or for queer women, but everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Queer folks should be leading everywhere in the public square, and these are the candidates doing it. Y'all have been so patient to stay after time. Lisa, Matt, do we have anything else?
I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say thank you to all of you that have participated, that have joined us today. I want to say thank you and good luck to our candidates. And this has been really hopeful. And I think this is exactly what we needed to hear today. When we hear Inside the Beltway and the talking heads on TV, it's not a good barometer of what's really going on in the states. And while I am very biased towards state legislative seats and candidates, and I always will be, and you all have really brightened my day, and we look forward to supporting you, not only this cycle, but in the future. So thank you so much for everything you're doing to be our firewall of democracy. It's terrific. Thank you all. Have a great day, and let's keep pushing one more week.